Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be participating in a collab video series. This series is more the perspective from secular point of view, so I'm excited to participate in this. I feel like the secular homeschooling community is growing, so I'll make sure to leave the playlist down below. So this topic for this video is planning science for next year. So I was excited to do this one because I've already planned science for next year. Science has actually been one of the easier topics. We have figured out what to do in our homeschool. So full disclosure, I am a Christian, specifically Lutheran, specifically the ELCA denomination, but I choose secular curriculum. Even so, I'm a Christian, but I choose secular curriculum. I have a whole video on specifically why I do that, but to sum it up really quickly is, especially with science, I prefer to come from a fact-based curriculum. So we teach facts in our homeschool. And also I find a lot of Christian or religious curriculum in general to be lacking in this area and also very heavily biased. And that's just not how we teach in our homeschool. So what I have chosen and what I've used since we've started homeschooling. So I have a 4th grader, a 10-year-old. I have a 6-year-old who's in 1st grade, and I have a 3-year-old son. I'm homeschooling my 2 oldest. And we've been homeschooling the last 2 years. My oldest did go to public school, K through 2nd. So since the beginning, what we have been using for science has been core knowledge. Now, I have a lot of videos on my channel about core knowledge. I'll link some of them above, the pros and cons. I recently did a video where I show how I prep, and there's specifically in that video how I prep science, so I will link that above. So in this video, I thought I would share why I really like using core knowledge science in our homeschool, and then I'm going to take you through and kind of give you an idea of how to navigate core knowledge, because I've already shown you how I lesson plan with science. I've already shown you the pros and cons of core knowledge. Again, check those videos out if you want to see more specifics on the science units, but I'm going to show you, how I navigate and figure out what I'm going to teach from core knowledge using the website, because I know it can be really intimidating or a little hard to understand when you first dive into core knowledge. So really quick, I'm going to go over the things I really like about using core knowledge science. So big one is it's free. And I know this, a lot of people think, how good can it be if it doesn't cost anything? And I highly recommend you look into it. It is quality resource, well written by people who know what they're talking about, follows the next generation science standards, which is an important thing for me as an educator that I look for. And because I'm able to get this quality resource for free, it moves other areas that I can spend money in my curriculum or my homeschool at, that science is covered, quality, good, free. I can put that money to use in other areas. I like that. Again, it's secular, and this is not to rag on people who choose any type of religious-based curriculum, but I prefer to teach from a fact base, and there's no bias within the curriculum that I have to worry about. I'm not going to be pulling things out and have to worry about putting in extra work for myself. I like that everything is leveled, so it's done by grade level, and I think that is helpful. You do not have to stick to the levels, and I talk about this in a previous core knowledge video. We did a human body study unit when we pulled all the way from K to 5th grade the human body units out of each of those grade levels, and was able to adapt it because I have a 1st grader and 4th grader. It hit both levels for them. And I like that it's leveled because the readers are written to the student. So it's not too much information. A lot of the K through 6 science curriculum is very broad or very detailed, and you usually have to move it up or down for your child. This I've never had to adjust. Usually I get this question, how does my 1st grader do with the 4th grade level work? So she has no problem understanding the readers. He enjoys the demonstrations. When it comes to the actual worksheets or anything like that my oldest daughter is doing. She's writing physically, usually writing unless there's some type of picture aspect to it. My younger one would do that, but she can follow along with us with no issue. Just her expectation of the level of work I expect from her is lower. Hers is a lot more verbal than written anything. I enjoy that it has the online resources, so you can see different videos, and they're structured in a way that they're put into the lesson. It's not at the end of the lesson where, oh, if you want to refer to this video, do that. No, it's actually in the physical lesson and it tells you when to actually access that video, and I'll show you that. I like that it's, no crazy ingredients. You don't have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. In the 2 years, I've only had to buy one thing for core knowledge science for any of our demonstrations or experiments. And I know it is written to a public school setting, and that turns some people off, and I've had no issue in 2 years. And again, I've done units from K all the way to 5th grade. I've had no issue adapting it to homeschool use. It's very easy. Nothing's written in a way where you need a classroom setting. If you're having a discussion, you have a discussion with your kids. The demonstrations are one-on-one, so it's never been an issue adapting it to homeschool use. So now I'm going to show you exactly kind of how I navigate core knowledge, and hopefully that will make it easier, because I know it can be intimidating and overwhelming first looking at it. I had to look at it a couple times before I really understood how to use it. I'm also going to put in the description box below a link to a website that explains how to navigate core knowledge. They even have an Instagram now. I don't do Instagram, but they have an Instagram account with short videos on how to navigate specific aspects of core knowledge, because it is written, I would say, for educators, and that's a good thing. Learning how to use materials written for educators, I think, is a beneficial thing for homeschoolers, because you're getting that research-based information and the support on how to teach it. This is the core knowledge website. So you go down to curriculum, you go to science. I'm going to show you really quick the subjects or titles by grade level, because I think that is helpful. So you have everything from kindergarten all the way down to 8th grade. So what we will specifically be working on next year is we'll actually continue going through 4th grade. So this past year we did a human body unit, and what I was able to do, and one of the things I really like about core knowledge, is you can pull units from different grade levels. You can pull units and build upon them, because you're not learning the same thing every single year. The whole foundation of core knowledge is you build upon what you already know from previous years. So for our human body, I started at the kindergarten level. You see there's a human body topic in every grade level. So we did start with the 5 senses, we did the human body systems, we did human cells and digestion, we did human senses and movement, we did human respiration and circulation, and we did human hormones and reproduction as our puberty unit. So that was our human body unit, and what's nice is because we do this as a group subject, so my 1st grader and my 4th grader, obviously we hit multiple areas, multiple grades, so it worked for both of them, which was really nice. So you're able to combine units like that and make unit studies. You're also able to take just one unit and not have to do the others. It's not like you have to do this first, this. It doesn't have to go that way. You can switch them up if you want. They don't have to be a certain order. So because we did that human body unit, we are still working through the 4th grade unit. So we are currently on energy transfer and transformation. So these are the topics we will be covering next year, and if we finish those, we'll start going into 5th grade. So investigating waves, structure and functions and things. So we will go, that is the plan for next year. We will finish these units, and if we do, we'll start into 5th grade and so on. I'm not overly concerned that it's at the exact grade level, although I do appreciate that there are grade levels, because like I've said in previous core knowledge videos, it's nice that the information isn't too overwhelming or isn't too low. It's perfect for that age group. Now the other nice thing with core knowledge, like I've said, is it can be free, or you can buy the readers and the teacher guides if that's what you want to do. I always personally just use the free PDFs. I have the teacher guides on my tablet, and then I have the student readers on my kids' tablet. So that is just a brief overview, and it does go all the way up to 8th grade. And this does follow next generation science standards, which I think is helpful, finding supplemental resources if you want to add to these things. It's very easy to find when it follows next generation science standards. So let's go back to this. I'm going to show you kind of how I navigate core knowledge. So, download free materials. I have science chosen here, and then grade 4. And these are all the science units available for grade 4. So I'm going to show you specifically kind of how I navigate those specific units. So like I said, this is what we're currently on right now. So it gives you a focus, the number of lessons. I wouldn't pay attention to the lesson time because again, this is written to a public school setting, which is not a negative thing at all. It's completely adaptable to homeschool use. I've never had an issue, and we've been using it for 2 years, adapting it to homeschool use. So you can download the entire unit, but I'll give you a quick here. So this is the teacher guide. This is going to be, your questions, your instructions. This is where you find the worksheets. The student reader is pretty much just the student's textbook, and I'll show you a preview of that. So it's just a reader. And again, you can print this at home if you like. We just use it on our tablet and the kids flip the pages, but it is just text written to your child, which is really nice. And there are vocabulary words. I do like that they have things like this highlighted because those are the main ideas you want to get out of these readings. So the teacher guide. So again, I will just download this onto my tablet and I can, annotate and make notes on my tablet. Or you can choose to print it out. Some people enjoy doing that, but let's look at some of what's in here. So the introduction, a lot of this beginning stuff, you only have to read once. And now that I've been doing core knowledge for so long, I don't have to read every single thing. One thing I do really like about core knowledge is this online resources. So for every chapter, you're given online resources for both you as the teacher and both for the student. So like videos, games, things like that. Things to learn more. So you can see these are the online resources for science. Core knowledge also has them for language arts. It also has them for history. So these are all the titles you will find that are available through core knowledge. Again, they follow those topics. So energy transfer and transformation, that is what we're on right now. So it shows you the picture here. It breaks it down by lesson. So in the beginning, it has some teacher curriculum things that you would mostly see in public school settings, what it correlates to. You do have a supply list, pacing guide, things like that. But for example, this is what I look at, resource links. This is more for a public school setting and what you're trying to aim for, but it has a lot of these video options. So for this introduction to energy, it already has the video options linked. So we were looking at rocket launches. Now, one of the sometimes negative part is not all the links will work. We've been using it for 2 years, and I think only about 5 links haven't worked. And it's very easy to supplement those links. You literally just type in what it says, and you can find it through other means, but it is already all linked here for you. So we always use the video links, and it tells you in the lesson when to refer to the video links. So as you can see here, this was really helpful. We just did this last week where we were looking at breaking glass with sound. The whole thing was energy transfers. So we looked at different examples of that, sound and water. So this would have been an example to show my children when we're talking about how sound waves literally move the water. So it's nice that it has all these different resources available that are already, you don't have to go searching for them, they're already here. And it is nice to have the teacher reference as well. So that's what it's talking about, online resources. So again, most of this it talks about where it hits next generation science standards. Most of this, as the home educator, you can look over, but you don't have to know every detail. Here, I do like that it breaks down what your child should know going into it. I think that's helpful. They don't have to have a mastery of these things at all, but it does give you an idea of how core knowledge builds upon itself. It tells you how to use the student reader, and it's pretty straightforward. Core lessons, again, it gives you an overview of what main things you're going to be learning, what big questions you're going to be answering. This will be the activity pages. These are located at the end of the teacher guide, which I will show you in a little bit. But this is what I print out. I do print out, even if we're doing it orally, I'm asking them questions, I think it's helpful to print out because I do keep some of these as record for their portfolio. And then pretty much just read this over once and go through it and you're done. It does have a materials list. And again, in the last 2 years, we've used these core knowledge units. Only once have I had to buy something, and that was magnetic tape. Other than that, I've never had to purchase anything extra to do the demonstrations or experiments in this program, which is really nice. It's everyday stuff you will have on hand. So it does give you an example of how to pace your lessons. What I actually do is I lesson plan them myself. So we do science 2 days a week, and usually we are able to finish an entire grade level doing it that way. But it does give you examples of how to do it, and I've never had a problem breaking lessons up into 2 days. It's never not worked out. So, introduction. This is something you would read as an educator, and I think it's important to have this information because especially a lot of us aren't scientists, haven't really studied in that field, so having a little bit background knowledge written to you, and not in a condescending way like you should know this, but just laying out the information for you to either review, refresh, or learn for the first time. So, lesson 1, here we are. So, it talks about how it hits next generation science standards over here, your learning objective, your activities. It does have vocabulary, and the first year we did core knowledge. I had my daughter do the index vocabulary cards. We don't do that anymore, but I do think it is important to know the vocabulary that's being highlighted. Tells you what chapter you're going to be reading, your student reader. It's going to tell you what activity page you're going to need. It's going to tell you anything to prepare ahead of time, which I think is helpful. So when you open this up, it's not like, oh, I need to get all these things. You can preview this ahead of time. This is the big question you start with, and we're bringing out activity 1.1, and I can show you that right now. So down here at the very end, you have the teacher resources. So you will have activity 1.1. So I would have had this already printed, and you're looking at an energy scavenger hunt. So it gives you some examples here, and then your kids would go out and look for different examples of this on their own, and then write 2 questions they have about their examples. So more of that investigating type of science, which I really like. And then you would just start your reader. So again, it has the words you're going to go over here. And then with each page, it does have some questions, not just comprehension questions, but asking your child to actually think about something. What are some other examples of energy causing change? And prompting them to make those connections if they're not naturally making the connections. And again, it has that online resource. So this is where we'd watch the rocket launch. And this is scripted for you. And it has the answer in case you don't know. How does the rocket change? It's helping your child reach those connections. And it's nice that it's all included in here. It tells you when to access those online resources. I know a lot of curriculums at the end, it will be like, these are the extra resources you can use, and yeah. I like that it's incorporated into the lesson. It just makes it easier for me. This I will talk about with my kids, but this is also helpful as the educator. What happens during a rocket launch? What goes on inside a pencil sharpener? So again, building those deeper understanding of science. This would be the vocab work if you choose to do that. We usually just go over the definitions while we're reading the book. We don't actually make index cards anymore. And it does have an answer key at the end as well that gives you all the answers. But that was it. That's all lesson 1. And does that take, does it take 15 minutes to read the chapter? No, because you're usually doing it with a much smaller group of people. It will take more about 5 minutes. I would say an average core knowledge lesson takes us maybe 20 minutes. And if we have a demonstration, maybe 30 minutes.
but I wanted to show an example. So again, it will just start all over again with lesson 2, where it'll tell you your activity pages, what to prepare ahead of time. So this one, I think, yeah, this was more like a demonstration. So we looked at using a flashlight and the energy transfer that happens during that, what change occurs when sound happens, and a burning candle. So again, these are all things you would have on hand, but it's a nice demonstration to really bring alive what you're talking about. I know a lot of people say core knowledge is a drier curriculum, and it has these opportunities, these demonstrations that bring it more hands-on, more alive to your children. And you'll have another 2.2, and then you'll start a whole kind of new section, and this is again for you, what you'll be covering. You start a new lesson, same outline. They're not exactly the same every single time. Sometimes you have demonstrations, sometimes you're reading the chapter and answering questions. It's nicely laid out and structured that it's very usable and I think adaptable. One thing I do also like on here is it has assessment opportunities. I know testing or any type of tests aren't seen as a very popular thing to do in homeschooling, but I think being able to measure what your child has learned and then being able to put it down on paper is an important skill, because even if they homeschool, through high school, when they get college or enter jobs, they're going to have to be able to explain themselves or their reasoning and be able to put it on paper. So I think that is a good skill to practice. So I do like the assessment opportunities as well. And again, this would be an example of a demonstration we did. We built a ramp to look at how speed affects energy, and my kids really enjoyed that one. This was to look at sound with a Post-it and a cup. So these are the things that would make it more interesting, not just worksheet heavy and, read a book, fill out a worksheet, which I think core knowledge kind of gets that. That's how people perceive it to be, and it doesn't have to be that way at all. And it does have little things like, crossword puzzles and things like that. We don't do that. We don't do the vocabulary review. I don't think that's necessary. That's just more busy work and something that you would see more in a public school setting. And then at the very end, it has all of your answers, which is helpful to know, again, because we're not experts in this. And then it has the answers to the unit assessment and even how to grade it. It gives a point value to all that.
So I hope that was helpful, showing you kind of how I navigate it, how I use it, what things I pull from it. Now, one question I do get is, with my younger one, because we do it as a family subject and it's leveled readers, is there ever an issue where we have to split? And I'm going to say right now there isn't. I do anticipate that we will be splitting group subject science when it comes to my daughter entering middle school, so 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Previewing the materials for that, it's a lot more intensive and will definitely be over my youngest's head. So my plan for that is my daughter will have her own science at that age level, and then my youngest daughter, who would be in the 2nd, 3rd grade level, we'll start over with her. So we'll start doing her leveled reading. So if she's in 3rd grade, we'll start doing the 3rd grade units, and then it'll be time for my youngest son to tag along with her and do the same thing up until middle school. And this time around, when she's doing 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, because she's had an introduction to the material, but like I said before, she hasn't done the written work, she hasn't done the more in-depth, she's just had an overview. So she'll get a much more thorough understanding of it going through it for her age level. And then my youngest, just like my middle child did, will tag along with her until she hits middle school, and then we'll split again. She would do a separate middle school science curriculum, and he would do something else. And I think being able to combine your children is beneficial and helpful, but my oldest and my youngest are 8 years apart. There's no way that I could teach well to each of my children doing group subjects like that, at least for science. I'm gonna have to split them, and that's completely fine. Getting them that tailored education means that they should have leveled things, especially when you're talking about middle school and high school. My oldest is going to be doing a lot different work than second, third grade type work. So that split will come that I'm aware of, but I wanted to share that because I do sometimes get questions on, since core knowledge is leveled and I do it as a group subject, what happens when you have those larger age gaps. You know, even between my first and my middle child is 3.5 years. So there's a difference there on the type of material you can cover, and that is kind of my plan doing science forward, is once they hit middle school, they get their own science section because it's a lot more in-depth and a little bit more work and intensive wise. So if you have any questions specifically about what I talked about or core knowledge in general, leave them down below. If not, thank you for watching.